Hello, hello, and welcome back to Happiness by Habit, the podcast where we explore the little habits that lead to big positive change in life. I am your host, Silvana Pimentel, and today I am beyond excited to welcome a visionary leader whose expertise in program management, process design, and cross-functional change initiatives has truly redefined what it means to thrive under pressure. Our guest today is Amanda Wild, a results-driven collaborative change agent known for her innovative spirit and relentless drive to deliver excellence even in the most challenging, fast-paced environments. Whether it is developing aggressive business plans, streamlining processes, or for maximizing ROI, or leading cross-departmental teams for success, Amanda has mastered the art of balancing the big picture strategy with the nitty-gritty details. Welcome to the show, dear Amanda.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited for the conversation today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Let's get started with your story. We would love to learn about your journey. How did you get started in product management and app development, and what inspired you to become a change agent in your field?
Yes. So it's been a long and very exciting journey. I spent the first 15 years almost of my career in aerospace and defense, and I worked in a major corporation. And I did a lot of wonderful things. I actually helped the company grow from 20 million to $1 billion. And I was on the executive team. I learned a tremendous amount from the incredible leaders that I worked with. And it was a great, great experience. And then I had kids, and my first daughter, I found out I was pregnant, and I thought I probably need to look at my life because it was also a very stressful environment. Very, very fast paced. The company was growing leaps and bounds. So it was a good time for a transition for me. And I ultimately left that world and then became an entrepreneur. And since then, I have been involved in many, many different businesses. And at the core of all of them is ultimately helping people become better human beings. I just have a deep love for self improvement and personal development. And so I'm just really excited to chat more with you about that today because it's been so many of the experiences that I've had have really created a belief, a strong belief that any of us can learn to make success and happiness a habit.
Love that. Amanda, let's talk about your why. What drives you every day to create products and help develop perform better?
Yeah. So I ultimately think it comes down to being of service and creating an impact in the world. I truly believe each and every one of us can create a major impact in the world. And it was first demonstrated to me when I was in high school. Somebody had signed my yearbook and they had mentioned that I had saved their life. And later I found them and asked them what they had meant by that. And they had said that I had listened during a time when they were contemplating suicide. And I realized at that moment how impactful just our daily presence in the lives of others can really radically change people's lives. And so the more that I can do that and share what I have learned and experienced, the goods, the bads, all of it with people, the more fulfilled I feel in my own life. And so that just wakes me up every morning excited to keep going.
Absolutely. How satisfactory it must be to do something that helps many people. And especially in that case, like, wow, that's very impressive. You literally saved their lives. That's impressive. You have a unique perspective on how to change your habits at the subconscious level. What are some ways people can reprogram their subconscious to create better habits, more success, and greater happiness?
Yes, that is what it's all about, right? So let's take a moment and talk a little bit first about habits, right? There we have good habits and we have bad habits, right? We have the ones that we do every day, like brushing our teeth. Most of us at this point don't even think about it. We just do it twice a day, right? And then we also have those habits that are much harder to change, right? We feel like, gosh, we've been trying to implement this workout routine, or we've been trying to be better listeners to our spouses, our coworkers, our children, whatever it might be, right? Some of us know we have these sticking points where it feels like we're kind of pushing a boulder uphill. And ultimately, I think it's so important to remember that when it comes to our habits, small hinges swing big doors. And I like that saying because, often we think like more is more, but really there are very simple and small practices that we can implement that make happiness a habit, or that we can
Mm-hmm.
get rid of those habits that we don't want, that no longer are serving us.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's so important to recognize the role that the subconscious plays in our habits. Dr. Bruce Lipton, he was a famous neuroscientist, and he also authored many incredible books, including The Biology of Belief. It's a great read. And he suggests in his book that 95% of our thoughts, emotions, and decisions are driven by the subconscious mind. And only 5% of our cognitive activity is actually conscious in our awareness. And so, if we want to change our lives, we need to reprogram our subconscious beliefs. It's a great way to actually make big shifts in our lives.
Fascinating. It's very interesting approach about positive and negative habits because we focus mainly on the positive ones, and it takes 21 days to create a good habit that can actually literally change your life. But let's talk very interesting about the negative habits and how to identify them and remove them from our life, because that can change the outcome at the end of the day, right? If we do the same negative thing every day, that definitely has a negative impact.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, let's talk about paraliminal and how can tools help rewire your subconscious for more clarity, confidence, and creativity.
Sure. Let's talk a little before we dive into the tools about what happens with our habits. Like you said, many of us do want to create habits that help us to be happier. And it's so important that we do that. And I think it's a wonderful aim. The challenge many of us encounter is that through our upbringing and our conditioning, we find that we've got these subconscious programs that we're running. They're limited, outdated, potentially negative. And what's interesting is that between the ages of 0 and 7, our subconscious mind actually absorbs everything like a sponge. It doesn't filter out anything. And so a lot of our subconscious beliefs actually happen in the household that we grew up in. So if we grew up with a scarcity or fear or emotional neglect, those patterns can stay with us. Or, conversely, if we grew up in a household where we believed that opportunity was all around us, or that we were really lucky people, or that people will always come to support us if we're having tough situations, those patterns stay with us as well. And so what can be tricky for people as they're trying to implement habits is that many times we know better as adults, right? We know what we need to do. We know how to implement habits. We know it takes 21 days, and yet we struggle to actually make them happen. And so, a classic example, right? Many adults know that to lose weight, we need to have a calorie deficit. And so we know we have to eat less. We know we need to exercise more. But why is it that so many people still struggle, right? And this is because we have the conscious mind that's like, yes, I want to get healthy. I want to, exercise. And we have the subconscious mind, 95%, right, of our behavior and our attitudes is saying, exercise is really hard and I hate it and I'd rather watch TV. And so the subconscious can win out, in many of these conversations that we're sort of having without even realizing that we're having them. And this leads to frustration because when we can't stick to our habits, even if we consciously want to, like we really want to achieve better habits. And since 95% of our behaviors are subconscious, it means most of our decisions, emotions, and reactions are happening on autopilot. And, this is something that is really challenging. If you've been programmed with beliefs like, I'm not good enough, or success is hard, or happiness is for other people, even if it wasn't outright and said in your family, young children are very good at picking up on the vibes of the family, right? And they then will unconsciously make choices that reinforce these beliefs, even if they want something different. And this is how people stay stuck in toxic relationships, or they struggle with money, or they self-sabotage with their health goals or their happiness goals. And it's very interesting because you can actually see this all around you. You can have two people who go to the same networking event. So let's just imagine we've got these two entrepreneurs. Let's say we have Sarah and Jake, and they go, it's the exact same conference that they go to, right? And they hear the same presentations, they
Mm-hmm.
see the same people, it's the same environment. But, Sarah, she grew up in this amazing environment. She was encouraged to take risks, connect with people. She thinks opportunities are everywhere. So she comes away from the conference and she's like, the people were amazing. I made great connections. The speaker really is going to help me in my business. And the whole thing feels uplifting to her, right? And
Mm-hmm.
yet
Mm-hmm.
you could have Jake, for example, who was raised in an environment where people are told, the subconscious theme is people are out to take advantage of you, or you're not good enough, right? You'll never amount to anything. And so he comes away from the experience feeling like that was a complete waste of time. Nobody cared what I had to say. People were just bragging about their success. People weren't friendly. They only had to talk to me because they had to. It's just so fascinating. This happens again and again. And there's actually science behind this, right? There is what's called the reticular activating system in our brain that filters information based on our subconscious beliefs. If we believe I'm lucky, our brain notices and confirms our belief, right? It goes around looking for instances where we are lucky. If we
Mm-hmm.
believe instead that I attract opportunities easily, our brain looks for proof of that, right? So whatever we are believing, and that is what we see all around us. And I think a good way to kind of summarize this is beliefs create our experiences and experiences confirm our beliefs, right? And I'm sure you have seen this too around you. It really comes
Mm-hmm.
down to how we're approaching life with this sort of negative or positive orientation.
Percent. I consider myself very lucky, for instance, and I talk about that when I get into any opportunity where there is going to be a raffle or any opportunity to show how lucky I am. I declare it. I say, I'm so lucky, I'm probably going to win. And turns out a lot of times I do. And I had a friend that was like, oh, I never win. I always lose. I don't even know why I'm going to participate in this bingo. I'm like, okay, let's review what's going on here because you're declaring it. You're actually advising your subconscious, telling the world that you are not lucky, unlucky.
Yes,
So definitely,
that's it.
that's what you focus on. That's what you attract. Love that.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And so happy to share more too about the paraliminals and how these kind of tools can really help to shift and shape people's beliefs that they might not even realize are working there, right? Even I'm guilty of this too. I had one of my coworkers, the other day I said, I can't remember anything if I don't write it down. And he said, that's a really interesting belief, Amanda. And I thought, oh yeah, he just caught me,
Well, at
right?
least he catch
Because
it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And tells me these things, right? Or when people say I can't, right? It's another one that I've become really attuned to hearing. It's like, not yet, but it doesn't mean that you
Well,
aren't
how can
able to
I?
do it.
Right.
Yes, how can I make it happen versus looking at it through this other lens? And it's just so interesting. The subconscious mind filters reality. It really does. It filters reality to match what we already believe. I like you believe I'm lucky. I've won so many things. Like I've won my wedding dress, for example. And
You
it's,
did?
another, yeah, I did. It was so cool
Wow.
because, yeah, I was in a raffle kind of thing. Same thing. I'm like, I'm
That's a
so
big look.
lucky. I always win everything. And I think people can also see this, like even it's been widely studied, right? That if we expect something to work, our mind and body respond accordingly, right? This is what's called the placebo effect. And if we expect that something is going to fail or to harm us, that's called the nocebo effect. And there's been a ton of studies around this, right? And it's just so fascinating. So let's talk about this secret weapon, which we call the paraliminals. And these were created by Dr. Paul Sheely over 35 years ago. And paraliminals can help rewire subconscious beliefs. And they allow people to create much better experiences and results in their lives. They're just incredible, and it's so surprising, but they really work effectively. So Paul Sheely, he is an expert in neurolinguistic programming, whole mind learning, pre-conscious processing, hypnosis, and accelerated learning. Obviously, it took him many years to acquire his PhD to learn all of those things. And the paraliminals that he developed help people access that 95% of the mind that so often remains untapped. And so he's helped millions of people achieve extraordinary results in their relationships, work, finances, health, spiritual well being. And I think what's so fascinating about his story, and Dr. Paul is now, part of our app, Mind Tracks, which actually includes all of these paraliminals. And so when Dr. Paul was early in his career, he was started out as a hypnotist actually. In his early 20s, he realized that his work was not to put people into a trance. Like most people think about hypnosis as kind of putting you in a trance like state. And he realized he was actually here to awaken people from the self limiting, self defeating trances that they're already in. These sort of self imposed because of our beliefs that our subconscious mind has created. And so he found a way to tap into the vast resources of your non conscious mind. And that's what led to the development of the paraliminal learning technology. So, paraliminals, people are always like, well, what is that? What does that mean? Well, it is derived from the Greek word para, which means beyond, and liminal, which means threshold. So it literally means beyond the threshold of conscious awareness. And so the paraliminals, through their unique application of neurolinguistic programming and whole brain learning technologies, they actually stimulate your mind to quickly improve your life and maximize your potential without having any sort of like subliminal messages or anything like that, right? It's state of the art digital recording. There's 3D sound, so it happens in both of your ears. So it's very interesting because you'll hear one voice in your left ear, and that one is speaking to the right side of your brain, and you'll hear another voice in your right ear speaking to the left side of your brain. And it creates this really incredible ability to speak to your subconscious mind and to allow you to make shifts that you may not be able to otherwise because you're hearing the messages that your conscious mind is so relaxed. It allows the subconscious mind to really take in the voices. And these voices are sort of artfully woven together as you're listening. It's a really incredible experience if you've never heard it. And it has binaural beats and these holosync audio tones in the paraliminals. So it just makes it really, really fun to pop in your headphones, turn on a paraliminal, listen, and at the same time, you're actually changing your own behavior. You can strengthen existing good habits, and you can also work on breaking those that are some of the ones that you would like to reform and maybe turn into good habits.
I have experienced that, and it's really, really interesting. What would be a good advice to identify these negative behaviors or negative self-talk?
Yeah, so I think that you just really nailed it, right? One of the first things we can do is listen to our own self-talk. I often tell people if you imagined that I had a megaphone and I was repeating out loud I was at a broadcasting studio, and everything that you said to yourself, I was repeating loud and wide so every one of your friends and family could hear it, you would likely not find that many of those things were so positive, right? And if we think about really tuning in and listening to what we say to ourselves, we'll catch these little beliefs. And, I gave you an example. Sometimes it requires our friends and our family to point those out. But many times, if we start to notice or we start to take a moment and process, like, why did I just say that? That was really interesting. We can discover many of these little hidden beliefs that come out through our words and our behaviors and our attitudes all the time, just sort of waiting to be these little gems, waiting for you to plant a seed that can really then turn into a positive experience in your life.
Yes, that's so true. Henry Ford said, whether you think you can or can't, you're probably right. And
that is
a lot
it.
of times, a lot of people say, no, that's so difficult. I'm not good enough. I cannot. And then a lot of times it's the self-talk. So
Yes.
definitely an important point will be to identify this.
Yeah, absolutely.
What could be a practical tip to identify this negative self-talk, or how can people turn that negative into a positive?
Yeah, so I think it's really, really helpful to do introspective writing. And many times, like let's say, for example, that I got in an argument with my spouse, and I'm like, he's just so frustrating. Like, I don't know why he did this or that. There is some great work that I will have to get you the name of the original person who created this concept, but she talks about where you need to reverse those sentences. So, for example, if I'm like, oh, I'm so frustrated at my husband. I can reverse that into, I'm so frustrated at myself. My husband's so frustrated at me. And I can begin to think about those situations as like, wait a minute, maybe I am frustrated with myself because maybe I'm projecting out there onto him that something has happened when in reality I could also be taking responsibility for this, right? And I think it's a great practice to just pause whenever we're feeling triggered by other people. That is a signal. It's a signpost that says we've got a little belief going on here, and it allows us to then look at that and say, how can we turn that around into a positive? And much of that comes back to, because we can't change other people, of course. Everyone knows that, yet we all still try to do it. And so it comes down to, how do we turn that around and how do we take responsibility for what we can change? How do we begin to notice, the good things that are happening? How can we allow ourselves to look at the circumstances and say, how could we create the most generous interpretation of this situation with my husband, right? Maybe he did that because he was really exhausted, or maybe he had to rush off to work, or whatever it was. Maybe there was something going on. And so when we can pause and slow down because we notice a feeling in our body that we are triggered in some way, it allows us to really see these beliefs that are just, they're always there working under the surface, but it gives us an opportunity to change them.
I'm sure a lot of our listeners can relate to that situation. The husband being frustrating a little
Yes.
bit. Not me at all, but just kidding. But once we change our approach, I mean, we can make a big difference in the outcome. So I love that.
Absolutely.
Very good. Let's talk about habits. I would like to go back to that
Yes.
topic. Can you share some
course.
happy habits you're implementing in your life?
Yes, absolutely. So I think one of them is something that, scientifically we all know is incredibly helpful for happiness, which is exercise and movement. I am a big believer in finding ways to get outside. I work from home like many others. And so sometimes I go days without seeing, real people outside of my family. And so I think it's just so helpful to walk outside. It's one of the habits that, you can look around and you can find joy in all of the things, whether it's a bird and their beautiful song coming to you in the morning, or you can look at a tree and see the little bud beginning for, to spring, whatever it is, or to notice, the stars in the sky if you're walking at night. All of those things just allow me to experience little moments of awe and joy throughout my day, and moving my body makes me happy. It really does allow me to change my perspective on life, because I can then take the things that I'm learning and experiencing, and I have a way to process it, right? Many of the things that we deal with, we feel in our bodies as well as in our minds. And so being able to get the body, move it, and get outside, it makes a big difference for me personally.
Activates your whole body and makes you be in a much better mood throughout the day.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes, indeed.
Do you do any journaling or meditation?
Yeah. Do not do journaling. However, I do, my meditation practice is really with listening to the paraliminals. So the paraliminals you can listen to them actually while you're sleeping. So I am an incredibly busy professional, and I also have, 2 young kids. And so, like many, I'm sure, that are listening today, it can be difficult to find times. And of course, meditation can be very simple, and I do love meditation. I also like that the paraliminals allow me to experience that same sense of calmness in my body and train my brain in the way that meditation would, but I can listen to them while I'm drifting off to sleep, and even while I'm sleeping throughout the night. And I'm filled with wonderful voices speaking very wonderful things into my mind. So there's actually a paraliminal that's called Happy for No Reason. And it was created by bestselling author Marcy Scheimhoff and Dr. Paul Shealy together. And you'll hear both of their voices. And, it's amazing because it talks about, you don't have to wait until you fall in love, or you get a new home, or you make $1 million to enjoy and feel happy in your life. Like, happiness is truly just moments away. And personally, I love that paraliminal. So I love to fall asleep to that one, or sleep deeply. Wake refreshed is another favorite paraliminal of mine that allows me to get the deep rest that is so needed to be able to go out and make an impact in the world.
Happy for no reason. I love that one. That sounds very interesting. Because if you think
Yeah.
about it, happiness is really a decision. It's something you can build by doing little things. So
Yes, indeed.
you don't need a, just to get married or to have kids or to get a dream job or to win the lottery to
Yeah,
be happy. But for that, I think it's
that's
very
right.
important as well to define happiness. What happiness means to you is something totally different than what it means to me or to somebody else, right? So setting the
Yeah,
right
yeah,
expectation is
absolutely.
critical.
And I think that brings up a good point because when you listen to paraliminals, you are asked at the beginning of the paraliminal just for a moment to think about those kinds of questions. And I think that's what makes them so effective because it's actually directing your mind and your attention and your intention in the direction of your aim, right? Where are you going? What does that happiness mean to you? And it allows you to really look at that and examine that in your conscious mind while then also speaking to your non-conscious mind to allow those things to become more deeply rooted in your true being so that it becomes second nature to actually have the thoughts that I can be happy for no reason, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. Many elite athletes and top executives use visualization and mental rehearsal to perform at their best. Can you share how subconscious programming plays a role in peak performance and productivity?
Yeah. Yeah, so it is well studied and known that many athletes and executives will use visualization. And so the paraliminals are like an opportunity to use visualization. Now, what's so interesting, right? Visualization, we think of our eyes, visualizing through our eyes a picture, and that
Mm-hmm.
is great. And we also use words to create pictures. And so paraliminals are like creating little movies in your mind because we're using the words, but the words that speak to the right side of your brain, the much more creative words that you're hearing, allow the pictures to come together. So part of the beauty of the paraliminals is that it's so interesting that the words for the creative side of the brain are actually stories, and the words that are chosen are very vivid so that they are allowing you to put together, this little sort of movie reel in your mind. And that's something that has a big impact because we are all great visualizers, whether we recognize it or not. We can create so many good stories in our mind. And those stories could be the good ones, that my husband is so helpful to me and he's a great dad and he really helps around the house, right? Whatever that is. Or it could be, as I said, of course,
Mm-hmm.
we've all experienced those moments where we are struggling. And so visualization can be small or big. Like I also want everyone to know it doesn't have to be a monumental undertaking. But if you were to spend 5 minutes a day visualizing what it would mean in your life and to you to be happy, that would be a complete game changer for many people because just that 5 minutes of directed attention will actually allow the universe to begin serving up those opportunities that will allow you to be happy. Because as we said, your beliefs create
Mm.
your experiences and your experiences confirm your beliefs. So when you shift that belief and you begin thinking about how that's going to play out in the day, you actually begin to experience those things. So it's like this really wonderful, virtuous, circle that happens as you begin to start to visualize your successes and what you want in your life.
I love that. And especially it's very important in that situation to identify and visualize and have clarity on what happiness means. Because a lot of
Yes.
times, if we don't know where we're heading, we are not going to get to the right destination because we don't even know the way, let alone like if we don't know what the destination is, it's going to be very hard to find a way to get there because we don't even know. So
Yeah,
it's very,
absolutely.
that brings clarity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. If someone wanted to take control of their subconscious programming today, what books, tools, or resources would you recommend to start shifting their mindset?
Yeah, so I definitely recommend checking out Paraliminals, obviously. There are also
Mm-hmm.
many free things that can be done. And so if we think back to some of the things that we have even chatted about already on our call, I think some very simple and easy things are writing down when we feel
Mm-hmm.
emotionally triggered, wherever that happens in our lives. And then in a moment of quiet reflection, figuring out that's interesting. What did that what is causing me to have that sort of reaction? what is it within myself that was really challenging at that moment? And when we use this opportunity to begin to shift our awareness around what we're thinking, I think that's incredibly powerful. I also think being able to have a vision toward what you want, I think that is something, it's free. You can sit down and write down what your life would look like, what it is that you feel is your definition of happiness, right? Remembering that happiness doesn't have to wait. It doesn't have to constitute some big dream that you have in the future. And somehow you can only be happy if you have those things, because as we all know, many times the most successful people in life will tell you that they achieve that thing, but then they still have that yearning and that desire to continue to achieve something else. So achievement and happiness are different. And yet somehow in our world today, we often conflate those things, and that becomes really challenging. So certainly introspection is definitely one of them. Definitely take a look at the paraliminals, because they're just so incredibly valuable in helping you recognize and change so many of these mindsets.
Yes. Amanda, you and I met through an AI mastermind group. Let's talk about the topic near dear our hearts, AI. How do you implement AI into happy habits?
Yes. So I am really excited about AI's use to help me in my life with my family meal plan, because I am a mom who is busy, and I ask a ChatGPT every week to create me a family meal plan. And I have fed it. I knows everyone in my family, ages and likes and preferences, what they want to eat, because, sometimes kids decide from one week to another they like something and
Right.
now they hate it. Yes. So ChatGPT gives me a meal plan, and I say, please make it easy and fast for busy moms. So that is super helpful. And then I say, turn that into a grocery list. And then I am now paying my tween daughter, she's 10, but I'm paying her to go online and to order the groceries at the store for us to do pickups. We are experimenting with ChatGPT Operator, which just came out, which allows you to do many of these things like ordering groceries from a list. There are still quite a few problems that my daughter and I have run into, but I'm using her as sort of an opportunity here to train and educate her on AI, because I think it's so important for kids growing up these days to really understand how to use AI. At the same time, while trying something really practical for our family, which is how do we get groceries, sort of a universal need, of course.
Absolutely. I love that. Let's talk a little bit more deeper about the parenthood and AI. Tell me about some tools or some things you are doing to expose your kids to AI, and how are they kind of embracing these new technologies?
Yeah. So even before AI really came out, I was encouraging my kids to play games that allow them to begin to learn how to be software developers. And software developers have a very unique way of thinking. And so many of the games, as I started to sort of analyze what my kids were playing, they're very strategic games. And so I think just, even if people are not familiar with AI yet, just knowing that you're playing strategic games with your kids, and this could be, old school board games, can be a way to get their brains primed for thinking strategically, because that's going to be a unique advantage to children moving forward, is how they think. And the other thing that I have done is really allowed my kids to use ChatGPT for fun things. So one of them wanted to name one of their stuffed animals. So we asked ChatGPT to come up with some names. So that was really fun. And one of them wanted to create a song. And so one day we used ChatGPT to create a little song. Because my kids are little, I'm still supervising anything. I'm involved in actually typing any questions or queries that we have to ChatGPT. I do know, and I would say that it's important for parents to know that there are chat friends, if you will, that use AI that are on the internet. And it's important to be aware that there is more and more research coming out that it can be challenging, because the AI can sometimes feed into children's negative concerns. So many kids, of course, will feel like, something that has happened with their parents is unfair. And it's important to know that some of the tools can actually say things like, oh, well, yes, that's so unfair that your parents did that. And while that may feel like a great friend, that's not how I want AI teaching my kids. So I think I'm still allowing them to be exposed to AI while also continuing to have some level of oversight to ensure that I know the kind of conversations that are happening. And I would think that the same way I would think of social media, right? You want to be mindful of what your
Absolutely.
children are doing on social media. You should be mindful of what they're doing on AI, chat type of conversations.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, Amanda, time flew by and I had so much fun. I really enjoyed the
Yeah.
conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible insights with us today. Your journey as your dedication to innovation, personal balance is truly inspiring. I know our listeners will walk away with new ideas and a fresh perspective on how to thrive even in the most challenging environments. Amanda, how could our listeners get in touch with you? What services do you offer currently?
Yeah. Yeah. So currently I am working on a couple of AI tools. I also have the Mindtracks app. So it's Mindtracks, Mindtrx. And that's available on Google Play or on the App Store. So definitely check that out. And then I'm available at amanda@mindtracks.com. So hope that helps.
Wonderful, wonderful. For everyone tuning in, remember that success and happiness are built habit by habit. If Amanda's story inspired you, consider incorporating one small change into your routine today. It might just be the start of something amazing. Don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone who is ready to take their life to the next level. Until next time, keep innovating, keep leading, and keep crafting one habit at a time, your beautiful happiness. Thank you for listening. Bye bye.